4, 3, 2, 1. Buckle your seatbelt. Batten down the hatches. Coming to you live from the Blazar Podcast Studios in Space City, Texas. It's time once again for the Capital Catalyst Show, the podcast for entrepreneurs to learn the secrets of attracting, raising, and closing capital from high net worth investors. Dedicated to your success, this is the Capital Catalyst Show. Now here's your host, Brad Blazar.
All right, everybody, listeners, welcome back to the Capital Catalyst Show. This is the podcast where visionary entrepreneurs share their stories, share basically how they have actually unlocked investor capital to scale and do something bigger in life. If you've ever dreamed of taking your idea, your goals, basically your vision further, farther, and faster than you thought possible, you're definitely in the right place. Today, I've got a guest that I've actually known for quite a while, and it's great to have him back. I'd like to invite my good friend, Chris Prefontaine, to the show. Chris, how you been doing?
Awesome, Brad. Good to see you as always, and good to be back on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We've connected. We've known each other for a while, and it's great to reconnect and obviously have you back on the Capital Catalyst Show. What I always love to do is kind of start with what I call a person's backstory, and talk about your progression into real estate. And then, of course, we'll get a little bit deeper and talk about what you're working on today. So how'd you get started in real estate?
Yeah, I won't do the whole 35 years because I'll put everybody to sleep, right? Because it's my 35th year, but I will give you high points and you can peel it back if you want to anything.
Sure.
Yeah, I grew up in a family company that was not real estate. It was a brick and mortar welding supply business. But the tie is my dad would build these buildings and then rent them back. He'd build them and he'd rent them to his company. I was like, I don't know, when I asked him that question, I was like 10 years old. I didn't get there was a disconnect. What do you mean? They're both you. But I understood what he was doing. It was brilliant over the years. And he ended up selling that company in the early 90s. And when he did, I went off just prior to that, luckily, and started building homes. And I did it on creatively without knowing it was creative. I was in my late 20s because I was asking the vendors, the landowners, everyone to wait to get paid until the house was done and cashed out. So I was naive enough to ask for it, and we got it in that market.
Yeah.
And it was, I said lucky because I got fired. So the dad sold his company. I was supposed to stay on. They fired me like in 3 weeks. I had 2 young kids, no money. So that was my foray into real estate. It was fun back then. I was young and naive, and that drove me up till about the crash though. And the crash, I don't know if you remember, but I got annihilated. I mean, financially and every other way. So that caused me then, that was the impetus to what we do today, which is we don't take conventional bank loans out. We do everything on what I call terms, creative real estate, sub to owner financing and lease purchase. And that's, to our earlier conversation offline, that's any asset class. I mean, we teach to get people running. We'll teach them residential so they don't get shiny object syndrome. But I mean, I bought my own office building, owner financing. So I teach people whatever asset class they want.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people, obviously, that have been turned upside down in the last couple of years, obviously with rising rates, deals going back to lenders. And, if you can do deals that are creative as you have, you stay away from the banks and you have much greater flexibility. Certainly because you've been at this for a long time now. What have been some of the, I'd say larger mistakes that you made? And more importantly, what did you learn from them over the years?
By far the largest was during the crash. I mean, I thought it was prior to the crash. I was fat and happy thinking it was an ATM machine. So many of us did, right? And so, hey, I got good credit. So I'll utilize it, mistake. And learn from that was, I don't care who you are and I don't care what kind of credit you have. The bank's got to do their job, that, and no offense to the bankers, I know a bunch, but that 30, 40, 50, 60-year-old, salary person is going to cut your legs out if they have to, because they're doing their job and you sign your life away. And so the biggest lesson was, I don't do that. I don't care how much money I have. Everything's cash for me now, but I don't care how much money I have or how much credit I have. I just don't use them. And again, no offense to bankers, but that's a big, big lesson because it caused a lot of stress. And now I can put my head on the pillow at night, Brad, as you know, and go, all right, I don't care if I have, 700 doors or 70 doors or whatever I have. I know I'm not on any bank loans. And that's it's a different path. So anyway, that was the biggest lesson for sure.
As you've grown your platform and as you've grown your asset base, have you chosen to bring in some investor capital along the way as well? Has that been
We
part
have. I think way back when I talked to you last time, I mean, I do just very spotty and selectively because it'll be my CPA or my attorney, or people know what I'm doing, and they'll offer it up. And so then, yeah, we'll scout down deals and take them down that way. But again, much more pleasant on that type of a handshake versus dealing with the bank. Sure.
Right. What are you seeing out there now, just as it relates to, your student community, the overall sentiment of people? I know for a couple of years now, things were really challenged because of the higher rates, and I think now there's a lot of opportunity out there. At least that's what we're starting to see as well. Are you seeing something similar?
Yeah, we have usually for different reasons, right? Then you guys, and some of them overlap. And what I mean by that is, like, even when the rates were high, anything like that causes turmoil, or I should say uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
The sellers need a guide, I'll call it. And so in creative, it's really cool to know that I don't give the markets up, down, sideways. We're fine. We just got to fish in a different pond depending on what the market's doing. My wife will say to me all the time, we've been married 40 years this summer. She'll say, oh, I saw this go on. Well, how does that affect the community? And I go, it doesn't matter. It's just knowing creative, confidently going, all right, I can just pivot over here. Not, I got to wait for the next market cycle, or I got to wait for this to change geographically.
Mm-hmm.
No, I just create a different deal and I fish in a different pond. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I know, in addition, of course, to being in real estate yourself, you've got this large, great community of other people that you mentor. What do you see as the big reason from most people that, are W-2, or, maybe they are 1099, but they're working for somebody else? What seems to be the big driver nowadays for people that come to a guy like you that want to learn how to get into real estate?
I tell you what the biggest segment right now is for us, and it's been this way since post-COVID, I think even more so, and that is record numbers, as you know, leaving corporate or wanting to leave corporate to start their own biz. Like, I think it was Michael Dell's book like 4 years ago that he came out with. He gave some stats there. Like, it's staggering how many more people are leaving to do their own business now.
Yeah.
So we're getting a lot of that. I can tell you what stops them, unfortunately. It's nothing to do with real estate. It's nothing to do with what you and I do. But what stops them is belief, right? Because if everyone in corporate, and granted, there's some people like their job, God love them, but all the other people that don't like their job, what's stopping them? Belief. It's kind of, and it's not what they think they can do; it's who they think they're not. In my opinion, they just have this belief system that's stopping them. Because why wouldn't everyone do it? Why would you be stuck with someone? So that's who's coming to us, but that's also why I think so many people have stopped.
Yeah. I think we find the same thing as it relates to even raising capital. It's not just starting a business or getting in real estate. It's you to go out and raise $1 million, and I think it's just a lack of self-confidence. I think some people have it, others don't. I think also as a good coach and a good mentor, we can give that to people to some extent. But it's one of the things I think that people have to have inside of them. It's kind of like this gear that's not spinning at an optimal level. And, once an outside force comes in and kind of kicks it into gear, once the person kind of wakes up and gets that confidence and gets that drive where they realize, hey, all these other people are doing it, shit, they're no different than I am. I just need to get off my butt and do it too. It's just about taking action. And I always tell people, if you feel stuck and you're sitting there and you're kind of wavering and indecision, the best thing to do is just take an action. Just do something. Because that's going to unlock the door to you moving further and further forward. And then, of course, you're going to connect the dots and you're going to meet a person like Chris or like myself. And before you know it, doors open up, opportunities open up. You go to networking events, you start talking to people. That's where the stuff actually happens.
You nailed like 3 times what came to mind when you hit this concept. And I'm going to call it like proximity or exposure, right? Yes. I just think it's huge. I had, Rod Cleef, I'm sure, and his podcast is awesome. He was on yesterday and he said, let's not talk about real estate. Let's talk about this. And he hit what you and I basically hit now. Like, it's all the mindset stuff. You and I can teach skill set to a blue in the face, but it's that proximity and in association with others that can change the stuff you and I talk about right now. Do you agree?
You're so correct. Here's the funny thing. When we launched our platform, it's been almost 6 years now. We launched it originally as Capital School. And when I started educating and teaching people about how to use OPM, how to raise capital, I think I was probably the first person out there on social media. Hell, now it's a dime a dozen. Oh, we'll help you get investor leads. We'll help build your funnels. We'll raise all this money for you. Half the people raising money aren't even licensed. They don't even know they're breaking the law. It's like so rampant. And what we started realizing is our business obviously was affected because now our potential client had a lot of other choices in front of them. Is we started interviewing our existing client base. And here's what we found. It was so amazing. Nobody wanted to go to school. Nobody really was interested in coaching. What they really wanted was access to a community and a network. And they wanted proximity to the investor community, to family offices and RIAs. So we rebranded. We called ourselves Capital Connections instead of Capital School, and things have just exploded. And so we are the only platform that says, hey, once you're investor ready, come with Brad. We'll go to these events. You'll start meeting professional athletes. You'll start meeting family offices, investment advisory firms that can allocate capital to. Yeah, what people really want now more than anything else is access to a community. They want to be part of a network.
Yeah, big time. Because look, reality is in both of our spaces. No matter how good we are teaching it, they're going to hit the curveballs and the roadblocks, and that's where the community comes in to support them. That's, in my opinion, it's bigger than anything.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree. Tell me, how have you grown your business, over the last couple of years? Has it been organic? Have you added new people to your team?
Both. I banged my head against the wall. I said to my son recently, I don't know why I didn't think of this earlier, but exposure did it. And that was, we were growing organic. And then recently, and I'll talk to you offline about this more, but we're on this major acquisition run to bring in some major, creative real estate is interesting. When I started, Brad, I bet you there was 4. I could count on one hand how many people that I was competing with. And now I think there's 200 because anyone with an Instagram account is a coach, right? That's right. So we're on a major mission to team up with those, whether it's a merger, acquisition, or both, and then get the word spread properly, morally and ethically and properly. That's what I mean by properly in creative real estate in a big, big way. So we're doing both now. I love the organic. It's how I ground it out, but I love the acquisition. So we're in the middle of a big roll up right now ourselves.
Yep. Now, as a real estate operator and as somebody that's been doing it as long as you have you found that it's much easier as you've grown to kind of stay regional and, acquire and operate properties geographically that are in proximity to where you are? Or have you expanded and gone to other states and kind of built the platform out that way as well? Because, obviously you can hire property management anywhere. Yeah. But a lot of people feel that, we want to be more in control, more vertically integrated. What's been your business model?
Our model, just because of that we're doing mostly creative and let's just say 70% residential, is that we stay somewhat local.
Yeah.
Because the 3 payday deals, the way we exit, is quite lucrative. So I say to people, look, you probably can accomplish all your goals within a 50-mile radius. For us, that means 3 or 4 states right around New England, us personally, our family company. But most of the people in the community are the same way. They can operate within. Now, are there people that, because I get asked all the time, but can I do it remote or can I do it afar? Yeah. I had a guy, Mike, half hour before your interview, gentleman who lives in Jerusalem, but used to live in New Jersey. His big dream was, I want to go to Jerusalem with my family as I still want to operate here. He's crushing it more than ever now, Brad. Like he's doing better from Jerusalem than he is from New Jersey. And I just had him on my show too for that reason. So he had a reason. It's not like he said, oh, I got to time this market. He had a reason. He had a life reason. So if they have life reasons to do that or family somewhere, great. I'll show you how to do it. But you don't have to.
That's interesting. I mean, obviously that's that's on the other side of the world. That's not just another state, but I mean, that's the beautiful thing about, this business and this industry. Yeah. And, what I also find, much like you had commented on earlier, the people that just hate their jobs. And I think statistically, I read a while ago that 67% of most companies don't realize that, almost 2/3 of their workforce already have one foot out the door. Yeah. But it's also, I think, just the fact that, people are burnt out. They want to be in a position where they don't have to exchange their time for money, which is obviously what most people do. You go to work every day. But once you start understanding the concept of investing in assets that create passive income to create the financial freedom, you get to a point, obviously, like Kiyosaki says, where you're covering your living expenses and now you're free financially. You can fire your boss and now you can start building more wealth and more passive income and, just keep scaling, which is great. The sky's the limit, which is what I love.
Huge. If I could comment on that, Brad, briefly, because you nailed it when you said the word passive. I know people would say, oh, yeah, they say that nonchalantly, but you nailed it because quick example, government worker, 30 years. This guy, Rick, in my community, he's actually not far from me, coincidentally, but he tried to keep getting out and doing things in our space, you and I, coaching wise. But you know what he did? He listened to kind of a lot of the marketing, and that was what? Go become a wholesaler, go become a flipper. He kept trying to do that, and all he did is create a job because it's very transactional. So 30 years he was stuck there. He had 118 employees coming to report to him. We took him on a very definitive plan, which is what we did with all our people who've gone full time, and said, okay, within 2 years, I think we nailed it in 19 months. Within 2 years, we'll help you get out of that with a plan. It's not like a feel-good goal. It's like, here's how you do it, Rick. And he did it. And now he's one of our coaches. But it's because our models, both of our models, allow people to do that. They're not going to create another job transactionally.
I love that. I love that. Tell me about the other coaches you have in your business, because that is something I think a lot of people that in our space overlook, and obviously time is money, and we want obviously quality of life. And I think a lot of the people get to a certain level and they just cap out. They're not familiar with things that we can do to grow our business as coaches. You can license, you can obviously have other coaches so that, your time is better spent on bigger picture things. How have you built your platform with, coaches and other people now that have expanded your team out horizontally?
Yeah, we have 5 coaches total. It used to be me, if you can picture it, my son and Zach, and my son Nick, and then
you get gray hair.
and then losing some of the gray. So what we did is we grew them until recently. We grew them organically. They all had to come to the system. They worked with me, and then they became coaches. So they all were like literally homegrown. It is a unique niche we have, right? However, I met someone on the podcast, Generations of Wealth, Derek Domback. I don't know if you know Derek, but I didn't know him from, from Adam. We just became friends over podcasting over the last, 4 years. And I was about to reach out to say, hey, do you want to kind of migrate over here because we're buying some companies? And he literally reached out to me and said, hey, I've had some life events. I love your brand. I just want to kind of come with you guys. So he's now a coach. He's the first one that had 20 years of creative experience, brings actually, quite frankly, as much as I have in the creative world to the table, and he's now a coach. So a little organic and a little from outside. And now, as I said, as we're looking at these other companies to purchase, we're going to acqui-hire a lot of really cool people in doing that. So that's going to be fun. And then, it becomes more of a lifestyle.
I love that. You've been at this a long time. And, I know a lot of the people out there in the space that have been at this, 10, 20 plus years. How has real estate changed over the last 25 years? I know you hit it on the head early. You've done a lot of everything. You've done sub-2, creative financing. You've invested in different things. I'm sure you've done the Burr method as well. You buy, you renovate, you refinance. Has it really changed much since you got started a long time ago? And if it has, how has it changed?
I think the fundamentals, skill set wise, in real estate hasn't changed. What's changed is what I alluded to earlier. There's a lot more noise in our industry, right? Because everybody's a coach or thinks they are. And that has changed. Why has that changed real estate? If that's on the other side of the coin, because the marketing is insane now to tell the public, get rich quick tomorrow and all these crazy claims. So I get people, and you might too, where the expectations are so out of whack, and I got to just reset that. Sometimes it's too late. That's changed. The fundamentals of real estate haven't, except for a few things that evolved. Like I trademarked what we do, and someone, trademarked the Burr method. Like that stuff has evolved, but the concepts haven't changed. Like people were doing the Burr method and frankly, my 3 paydays before I trademarked it, I'm sure, in some way, shape, or fashion. So that hasn't really changed. I just think that it's become a little bit more distracted, and in a good way, it's become a little bit more well-oiled. Like we've taken some concepts in our community and said, okay, let's put support behind it. Let's get behind it. Let's do deals with people so they're not stuck, and let's trademark it and make it a system. Okay. But it was sort of out there, right? We just made it better.
Right. You brought up a great point, and it's a point that I want to reinforce for all of our listeners. And that is the best marketer, or the person that catches your attention because they're the more visible on social media, is not necessarily the best coach or the best mentor for you folks. And trust me, who coaches you really matters. I'm sure, in your business, Chris, you probably have had a lot of people that have come up to you and they're gun shy. It's like, Chris, I'm just gun shy, man. I spent $30,000 hiring this other guru, spent the last year with them. Nothing happened. They didn't do what they said they were going to promise on. And, I'm just really reluctant to go through this whole mess once again. What's different? Giving some reassurance. And it's almost like you got to sign your life away and give them a money back guarantee, and then hopefully they come on board and they see that you're different, that you deliver, and, you're able to help them. But there is a lot of that out there. And, it's kind of pissed me off because people invest, a lot of money, sometimes upwards of $50,000 for some of these higher end masterminds and these big names. And at the end of the day, the person that is obviously behind the business is really failing not only themselves, but also more importantly, their community and that person that place their trust. So, all I'm saying, everybody that listens to this, is do your diligence, man. Check out the individual, look at their testimonials, call some of their testimonials. It's funny. We have people that go to my website and I get calls from people on my website. Hey, I just got a call today from somebody that's checking you out. And I'm like, who was that? And they're like, oh, this guy just found me on your website because I'm a testimonial. So they're going to their website, getting their contact information. We're not even making I'm not even making the referral. And I'm like, that's good. They're doing their due diligence. That's what they should do.
They should, because there's a lot of testimonials now with AI that are all fake. And so it's just like, it's another whole level. Here's 3 quick things for your listeners to do. And I don't care if this is real estate or you're going to open a restaurant. 3 things. 1, pick the niche that you can get behind, right? Like just morally, ethically, and energetically. You go, I like this. I want to help people, whatever it is. Secondly, find someone, to Brad and I's point, who has been through some economic cycles, has been doing deals, and still is doing deals. That's key. Right. Not they did a deal 25 years ago and you're going to pay them to coach it. And third, put the blinders on for 3+ years and don't get the other shiny objects squeaking in on you there. And by the way, when I say pick someone in the niche that's had experience, I also mean that someone that you can relate to, because you and I both know people that have trashed relationships or trashed kids' relationships or spouse I'm talking about the whole picture, like someone you can get behind that also has all that experience. That's, in my opinion, what you should do. And if you do, and you put the blinders on, you'll have a great experience, unlike so many other people.
Right. Yeah, that's so true. I mean, I've been part of some groups and I'm just, starting to realize the person's not really what I originally thought they were. And so, you just eventually leave, you just walk away. You decide to not be part of that community anymore. Tell me what you're working on nowadays. What's ahead of you? I always believe that you're chasing yourself. I stopped chasing other people a long time ago and got over the, shiny object syndrome. But, I just keep chasing myself now. What's in the future for you?
2 big things for us. One is the acquisitions I told you, because I think it's going to really put the community, like we talked about community, how important it is, right? Well, when we start adding pieces of the community internally that can help them so they don't have to go elsewhere. And I'm talking about mindset, not just real estate. Sure. It's all going to be part of our eco structure, right? So that's 1. 2 is, in doing that, is solving another goal of ours that we labor over, which is how can we shorten our time to first deal? Because if a student or a community member does a deal more quickly, they're not going anywhere. That's reality. Right. It's too lucrative. So those are things we're working on. I think they complement each other because the acquisitions are going to bring things that we need into that mix. So yeah, those are our biggest things right now.
And are you still doing events as well as part of your plan?
Yeah, we tweaked that. Thank you. I didn't say that. So about a year and a half ago, we did a beta test. We built a classroom. We broke through a wall here in the office. We built a 30-person classroom, not huge, so it's still intimate and literally nice top of line classroom. And we do boot camps, and it's free for every level in our company, so they can come in. And the whole concept was, Zach thought of it, was to get people in the trenches and see us doing calls and the coaches doing calls live, not like in theory, not on video. Bring your leads. We will convert them. You will go home with deals. That has been a game changer. By far the most important thing we've ever done. And we just started, 18 months ago.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that is unique. I have not seen that before. And so to be kind of in the trenches or in the boiler room, that I would think, number 1, helps people overcome the lack of confidence. And now they see how this actually works. Yeah. Just a matter of doing it myself. But the other is, I always tell people, if you can be in proximity to, your mentor, your coach, the person that you've obviously hired, all you got to do is just watch what they do and then just basically walk in their shoes. It's really not that hard to do. It's just, listen to Chris. Here's what he's saying. Listen, and then just say the same things. And now obviously ad lib and put it in your own voice. but it's like, quit trying to reinvent the wheel. And I think
it's
that's
not great
what a
science.
lot of people do is they try to reinvent the wheel. They make it far too challenging and far too difficult, where it's really much simpler than that, folks. And like Chris said, a lot of it is up here. It's mindset. You got to get over the lack of confidence or the limiting belief. This is an industry that literally has made many, many, many hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people extremely wealthy. I think real estate's probably one of the major industries globally around the world that's created more millionaires than just about anything else. But I think that so many people get stuck. It's almost like they just vacillate in indecision. And I think a lot of it is just lack of knowledge. They feel like they're stuck in quicksand because, again, they don't know what it is they're supposed to be doing. And more important thing is, I think that they're very scared of making a costly mistake, because this business can be very costly if you screw things up.
Yeah, 100%, which is the reason for everything else we said, right? With the mentoring. Yeah.
Absolutely. 100%. So do you have any events that are on the horizon in the near future that you want to talk about or maybe market?
Yeah, our boot camps are every 6 or 8 weeks. It's just inthetrenchesbootcamp.com. And then we have our annual, which you probably remember, and that's in Rhode Island again. We went to Boston 2 years in a row and brought it back to Rhode Island. That is in October, and that's 3paydayslive.com. Okay. And then I have the free book for everybody. And Brad, if I may, and there's no the free book offers where you got to put in $7 for shipping. So that's not free. We have a free book offer, and everyone in your tribe is welcome to it. It's just 3 paydays. So again, numeric number 3, 3paydaysbooks.com/capital.
Right.
Happy to send it out. Hard copy. It's not electronic.
Okay. Yeah, we'd love to send it out to people. We'll put that in the show notes when we actually release that. Yeah, and so we'll make sure that we actually get that, and then of course make that available to everybody else. How can people follow you, Chris? Or obviously, what's the best website for people to go to that want some information, maybe reach out to you for some help in real estate? Because probably 80% of our community is real estate. Then we got everything else: business acquisition. People raising money for AI, people doing shows and movie productions and stuff like that. But the bulk of our community is definitely real estate, and a lot of people might need some help.
I appreciate it. So the main site is just smartrealestatecoach.com. And if you want to I'm big on free, Brad, if you can't tell, because I know there's a lot of junk trying to be sold to these people. So you can go to my free workshop. It's like 30 minutes, not even, and no one's pressuring you. Just go to smartrealestatecoach.com/masters class. Masters with an S.
Gotcha. Beautiful. Well, Chris, thanks again for being on the Capital Catalyst Show. For our listeners, thank you again for dialing in and listening to this episode. If you like this episode and it's been your first one, give us a thumbs up, leave us a review, and make sure that you become a subscriber so that you can get notified when new podcasts are released. This is Brad Blazar once again saying thank you, everybody, for dialing in and listening to another episode of the Capital Catalyst Show. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the Capital Catalyst Show with Brad Blazar, the best place for entrepreneurs interested in doing something big in life, having considerably less stress, and a more balanced life. Go to bradblazar.com for more ways to accelerate your success.